It's something we've seen a lot lately, reporters mining the social media posts of figures in the news to see if they've got any virtual skeletons in the closet. But a recent USA Today story is raising questions about whether this sort of coverage can go too far. Adam Riley has more.
Kyler Murray showing off the wheels. He'll take it. Touchdown.
After a dominant season quarterbacking the Oklahoma Sooners, Kyler Murray was named the best player in college football.
The 2018 Heisman Trophy is awarded to Kyler Murray of Oklahoma University.
But while he was still savoring his success, USA Today reported that more than 6 years ago, Murray tweeted at his friends using an anti-gay slur. Murray then apologized on Twitter and TV.
I was young. I own every single part of it. It used a poor choice of word.
But while you might think the episode made Murray look bad, some thought it made USA Today look even worse.
Teenagers say inexcusably stupid things. It's not newsworthy.
And this is way, way, way out of bounds. In fact, this is why people hate the media.
Murray isn't the first public figure to get in trouble for old tweets. He joins comedian Kevin Hart, NFL quarterback Josh Allen, and NBA player Dante DiVincenzo, among others. But he may be the one who ends up sparking a backlash.
Not to diminish what was said or tweeted, but it does beg the question, at what age?
I certainly would not want to be judged by what came out of my mouth at age 14 or 15, that's for sure.
For the record, neither would I.
Yeah, well, I'm loving this, the fact that there's a backlash against USA Today for this. They obviously knew he was going to be awarded the Heisman Trophy, had this thing ready to go, and within hours went with it. But it also speaks volumes to, like, the Academy Awards, that they couldn't have done the same kind of research with Kevin Hart, even if they had gotten out in front of it. But, they waited until some reporter came up with it instead of doing the research themselves. But certainly, just to go back, when you're 12, 14 years old, stuff that you said to me should be off limits, unless it's really ridiculous.
Right, but even if it's just a one-off or some crazy retweeting of something, and you're 14 years old, I don't have a problem with that. I would have a problem with it if it was a 14-year-old who had been posting daily videos of something, right? It showed a pattern, and it continued maybe even when they into their college years or whatever it might be. If it's just a one-off, I think it's irresponsible for us, because you probably can, if you dig. For the older ones here, we didn't have the technology where you can go and readily find it. But if you found some cassette tapes of mine from back in the day, you might be able to find something there that's offensive because you're young and you're stupid. And so I think you do have to draw that line and say, okay, young kids say something, if there's a pattern of something, then maybe you can dig into it a little deeper. Maybe ask them questions. Say, do you still feel this way? And if they do, then report on it.
I think USA Today, I think it was a cheap shot on their part. But at the same time, look at it. Now they've reported this. He immediately, first rule of crisis communications, he immediately acknowledged the problem. He immediately apologized. So now he already puts it in his past. I don't think people will blame him for it. I think that his reaction to it was proper and sort of absolves him. He realized it. I think the only issue for him down the road is if, in fact, he does this again, then he's got a prior.
So.
He's got a prior. He's got a prior, and it'll be a problem. But I think for the most part, the actions of USA Today is I think, reprehensible as they were, did lead to him clearing the air now as opposed to down the line.
Well, we're probably all going to agree here. It wasn't a one-off, by the way. He did do this several times when he was 14 and 15, but I don't think there's any evidence that he has said anything like this since he was 15. And I mean, that's pretty young. As you said, Dan, you're young and stupid at that age. And I agree with Mike that he apologized in exactly the way that you would hope that he would apologize. And as long as he goes forth and sins no more, I think
also,
that ought to be the end of it.
What's interesting is the word, as I understand it, was queer, which is something that is now acceptable language in the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, if they use it themselves.
I understand. I understand.
It's being reclaimed. That's being reclaimed, not reclaimed, just so we're clear about that. So USA had it ready to go because of Kevin Hart. Remember, the Kevin Hart thing had just happened. So, you have to look at, they're covering the news, and they're like, whoa, Kevin Hart just came out with this. Here's a guy that we know about. How would they not go with that story, whether or not he was 14 or not? I'm looking at it from somebody.
I doubt Kevin Hart was the catalyst because they knew he was going to get the Heisman Trophy. They probably had that just ready to go.
All I'm saying is that Kevin Hart's comments were right out front at that moment, because I was surprised saying, wait a minute, somebody else? Right afterwards. That's what struck me in the moment about it.
And that
so
could have been, use a little judgment on the part of USA
I'm not
Today.
saying
Two completely different situations.
That could be. But I'm just saying that's what probably prompted people to say, this is a story. We just had Kevin Hart. We're going to do this. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I understand what people say about being young. I think a pattern is really important to pay attention to. And I also think that when we say that someone has a good apology, the second part of that is to say, from now on, my action is this. So I applaud him from coming forward to say, this, I was stupid and young. I would not do it again. I would have liked to have heard the second part, which is, and from now on, because that's what a good apology is.
I don't know what else he said.
I also think this is a teachable moment, and I've said this before. Anytime these kinds of things come up, I always talk to my kids, now this is the reason you have to think about everything that you send out. And because even if you think, well, I'm young and stupid and I can get away with this, somebody will go back and will dig this up at the right time or the wrong time, and a career, or much worse, could be ruined, right? So it's an opportunity for us to talk about the fact that when you do things on social media, oftentimes they are there forever.
Or even on live TV, like what happened with Mika Brzezinski this week, using a term that's unacceptable, and she apologized too.
But I also think with young kids too, there is something that they're doing for a shock value, particularly when you're 14 and 15. And there's been, unfortunately, sometimes a use of an expletive and a slur, like off and on, just to make make you super cool, or so you think you're super cool, because you can use those words. So that has, to your point about the teachable moment, that's important to have that conversation as well.